All right, welcome everyone to another Jet Set Trainer podcast. I'm joined here with Dr. Shepard, one of our members from our clinical staff. Hey Doc, where are you coming from today?
Hey Scott, how are you? Beautiful, sunny, super hot Los Cabos, Mexico.
Yeah, I bet it's hot right now. So we got the La Nina this year, so we'll see what that does. But today we're going to talk about something that's, I'm sure, all over. I know it's all over my Netflix Roku account. I get ads there. I get ads on Facebook, Instagram. I get ads about this nonstop, at least 4 or 5 times a day, about a magic injection that exists now called a GLP-1 or Ozempic, as many of you might know, one of the name brands. And so today, what we want to do is we want to really understand the context of what these are, where they came from, what they do, the different versions that exist, because I know a lot of listeners either are on a GLP-1 or know someone who is taking one. And this is not a bash GLP-1s podcast just because I'm a coach, trainer, and a pilot. This is really understanding the context of what they are and the benefits and downsides of them, just like any drug, and how actually some of our clients use them and how we mitigate the negative effects and maximize the positive effects with the ultimate goal of never having to take that drug again to lose weight. But that's kind of my introduction, Doc. Anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. And you are absolutely correct. I mean, you can't walk through an airport, you can't pick up a magazine, you can't listen to a commercial on a radio station without the term GLP or rapid weight loss or blood sugar stabilization popping up in multiple times. So I think it's useful to begin this by saying, what even is a GLP-1? We've all heard that acronym, right? But do we even know what it is? Because that actually helps us have an understanding of how it can be beneficial, how it can be useful, what some of the negative downfalls are from utilizing it. So GLP-1 essentially is all about metabolic regulation, blood sugar support, and appetite, right? So GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide. So this is a natural hormone that's actually produced in every person's stomach. So this is not some amazing piece of science, okay?
So are you saying this is a legal peptide, Doc?
Oh, that's a whole different conversation now, isn't it?
Maybe we'll talk about that later,
I
but
think we should. I think we're going to have some fun with this. But
yeah.
yeah, no, the point is this should absolutely be legal, right? Because our own body produces it. Okay, so our body produces GLP-1, our body produces GLP-2. And you've all heard the latest, greatest, the GLP-3, which the body does not produce. So that is a hybrid of three different mechanisms of action. So let's just touch on what the GLP-1 is trying to do, okay? First, this was actually formulated as a drug for diabetes management, okay? So that's where it all came from. Now, major media has brought it into the forefront, and it's now available as peptides through oral versions and through injectable versions. Some of them take a one shot and hope for the best for a week. Some of them are daily doses. There's a multitude of different things, but they all come back to the one thing that a GLP-1 is trying to do, and that is stabilize and balance blood sugar, slow gastric emptying, regulate metabolism, and bring weight loss. Those are the four major things that a GLP-1 is trying to do, as opposed to a GLP-2, which is not designed for weight loss. It's designed for intestinal repair. This hormone is actually produced naturally lower down in your intestines. Now, is one of the side effects of that some weight loss? Yes, it absolutely is. But it's designed for helping people with holding on to the food for a little bit longer so that it can actually be processed. So somebody that has shorter bowels oftentimes can't get enough nutrient absorption. So if they're not able to get nutrient absorption, it doesn't matter what they're eating really, they're not being able to fuel the body. So a GLP-2 slows down that whole process, while it is healing perhaps some of the leaky gut type symptoms. So we're now pulling down overall inflammation in the body. Okay, So then that leads us to the latest, greatest, the GLP-3s, right? Because if a little was good, two of them's got to be better, so now three should be even better. Well, mechanisms of action on a GLP-3 are definitely super, super different, okay? So essentially what we're trying to do with this one, lower our appetite, slow down gastric emptying, and balance through glucagon and glucose and insulin, the insulin receptors. So this is the one from the limited research that is available at this point that seems to have the most efficacy in the most amount of weight loss in the shortest period of time. So that just kind of gives us an overview.
Yeah, and Doc, for the listeners, if you're not familiar, Doc Shepard and I work together at Jet Set Trainer. We look over labs, we diagnose metabolic dysfunction, and we treat it. Now, me and Doc work really closely with a lot of markers and a lot of different lab deliverables with our clients, glucose, continuous glucose monitoring, GI surveys, biometric health surveys, and he is. And what's your background, by the way, Doc? Why should anyone listen to what you're saying right now?
Well, 25 years in clinical practice. I am trained as a functional chiropractor. I have a diploma in clinical nutrition and a diploma in functional medicine. So plenty, probably, oh man, we've got to be coming up about 18,000 patients over 26 years now. I'm starting to date myself, but just lots of experience. And one of my passions has always been to help people get better functionality, not more drugs. Okay, so how can we help the body work better, work smarter? And I loved your comment earlier, Scott, about how we don't ever want to necessarily have to use these drugs as a tool again if we support the body, and we always let the data drive what's going on, right? So we don't want to guess about this. And that's come from just literally years in the trenches of seeing what's happened, but understanding that it is objective and subjective based from empirical data so that we know what's happened before, during, and after the whole process.
Awesome. So, some stats that I looked up for this call, 1 in 8, it's estimated 1 in 8 Americans have taken or are currently taking a GLP-1. So it's a massive industry, trillion-dollar industry that's just blown up. As you can see, it's everywhere. There's multiple companies, multiple versions, and it does not appear like this train is going to stop anytime soon. In 10 years, do you think that when we look back at the 2020s and when these GLP-1s started to hit the market, do we think there's a potential this could go south, kind of like the opioid area, or maybe what's the painkiller that they had that wonderful Netflix show on? I'm talking about the painkiller that was rampant in the 90s, that was really bad and got people hooked on painkillers. Blanking on it right now. I'm gonna look it up.
I'm blanking on that one too.
You know what I'm talking about though? As Ferris Bueller plays the role in
Yes.
and Netflix is making me crazy. I can't even think about it. I'm gonna look it up in just a second. But do we think we're gonna look back on this GLP-1 craze as like, oh no, this was launched too soon. This is gonna lead to, because there's already been kind of some grumblings of bone density loss, or people end up in the hospital because their food's been in their stomach for 4 days or something crazy, right? And no drug's perfect, to be fair to Lilly and all the people making this. Or are we going to see this more like a statin, where it's now clinically everywhere? It's one of the most prescribed drugs to fix an immediate problem. What do you feel like this is going in the next 10, 20 years?
And I think that's awesome that you are even thinking about this. How I'm going to answer that is there's no drug really that's bad, right? There's no solution that's bad. What can potentially be bad is how those solutions, how those drugs are actually utilized. Okay, so one of the things that there's a right way and a wrong way to utilize all of these. So if somebody is being monitored, if somebody has the empirical data to back up what they're doing, if somebody has the support for correct dosing, if somebody has support to make sure, just as an example, they are not losing muscle mass, because these rapid weight loss tools will make everything drop. And that's where you see, that's a thing now, the latest thing in social media, the Ozempic face, right? You've seen that that famous artist, the Scream, I mean,
Yeah.
it's scary, and this is what's actually now. This is starting to create a whole new revolution, for want of a better term, in the cosmetic industry to combat the effects of Ozempic face. So
Yeah.
this isn't going away, Scott. To answer your question, is it going to be seen as a potential positive long term? Done.
Oxycontin was the drug.
Yeah.
I looked it
There
up.
you go. Oxy. Yep.
Is this going to be another Oxycontin or Fen? I think it was another one in the 90s, right? That led
Yep.
to like cardiac arrest and all these other horrible things. Or
Right.
is this you feel like here to stay and maybe be like a statin in the future?
I don't think that anything per se is here to stay. We're always going to see in the medical field evolution, whether that's a positive or a negative thing. I think people are always, the one common denominator here is people want something fast. They want something without having to put too much skin in the game themselves, right? This is known as an easy thing. Oh, I just take my shot. You hear the guys talking about it in the gym. You hear the women talking about it in the salon. Oh, this is so easy. I've just lost 20 to 30 pounds and all I got to do is show up and take my shot. But what's dangerous about that is it being monitored? Are you cowboying this? Are you deciding when you're going to increase your dose?
Yeah.
And is it going to be sustainable? Or are you now going to be on this little treadmill for the next however many years? Because did you change your habits? Did you change your relationship with food? Did you change what you were willing to do? And if the answer honestly is no to all of those, guess what? You now have become part of the lab rat population where we're just going to now give you a new one in 6 months because it's the latest, greatest. You got a great result. There might have been a few side effects, but maybe you were willing to be okay with them. You know, it's like, well, I really haven't had a bowel movement in 4 days, but man, my scale just went down 6 pounds, so it's okay. You
Yeah.
know, that's, I think, what we're going to see. So go away, no. Be super, super detrimental, not from what I've seen so far, and I hope not to be proved wrong.
Okay, so let's go back into some of the science of this. We talked about insulin sensitivity, we talked about suppression of hunger, gastric emptying. These are some, maybe for people listening right now, they're like, what are we talking about? I just know I lose weight, or I just hear people lose weight when they inject themselves. So, how can we explain how this drug works to like a 10-year-old?
So simply, if you're not hungry, you're not going to eat.
Okay,
Okay.
is it the
So
number one driver of weight loss with this drug? Is this it's just actually getting people to stop putting food in their mouth? Is it that simple?
I mean that's a very important piece, yes, because there's a component in there that sends a message to the brain, which is the satiation mechanism, which says, I I'm full already. So I don't need to eat. I don't care when my next meal is coming because I feel good. So that's part one. That's the mental part of it. Part two is when you put the food into your mouth, it's going to slow down how long it takes to come out the other end. So, whereas before you might have been able to eat a 12-ounce steak, now you're full on a 3-ounce steak. And that message is getting sent to your brain to say, okay, stop eating. So now what's going to happen is the capacity of your stomach is going to continue to decrease, right? So even if you did want to put more food in there, it would probably give you nasty side effects like acid reflux and or an awful lot of gas because you've slowed down your intestinal motility, which is the ability to be able to actually process the food, get it out. And then at the same time, it's trying to stabilize your blood sugar. So oftentimes, let's just say if someone's had poor habits for a while and they love carbohydrates, what happens after a carbohydrate crash? You've got absolutely no energy whatsoever, right? And that's because your insulin got produced way, way too fast. The body can't transport your glucagon or your glucose into the cells to be able to be utilized. So it's going to get, number one, stored as fat. And that's why someone is going to turn to something like a GLP-1, a GLP-2, a GLP-3 to try and make that process, or to basically circumvent that process without having to change any of the habits. But if those habits didn't change, the minute you go off it, it's all coming right back on. That's
And this
that's
is
the danger.
Yeah, and honestly, this danger just gets compounded with someone who doesn't already trust their ability to eat. And so now we haven't improved that trust. In fact,
Mhm.
I would argue possibly made it worse. And I'm thinking of a client that I'm working with that's on a GLP-1 where he is literally like terrified about himself and his ability to eat food. His relationship with food has been totally wrecked. He's lost a lot of weight on the GLP-1, and we're in the process of getting him reacquainted with food. But where he's at right now, he didn't trust himself before the GLP-1, obviously.
Mhm.
Now he took the GLP-1 and got results. And now he really doesn't trust himself without the GLP-1. So in some ways, I feel like, got him further from actually understanding the way his body works, because before at least he could feel what hunger was. Now he's kind of in an abyss of, I don't know what hunger is anymore, almost. Like, can I trust it?
Yeah.
And that's my biggest fear with people who just want to inject themselves and lose weight, is that you're signing a deal with the devil, because you're you're giving away control of your body, and you're teaching yourself further not to really listen to. There's a disconnect. You know what I'm saying?
There's a
And
big disconnect, and you create, like you said, that negative feeling about food. Food is supposed to be a beautiful thing. That's why it was always shared with family members, and a meal would be several hours. Now in our culture, it's like, how much can I shove down in the shortest space of time and carry on doing what I'm doing? How many people you see driving along in their car eating their McDonald's or whatever it is?
yeah, and so and at the heart of this, like you said, to lose, we can lose weight without GLP-1, and getting people to eat less, but also being able to actually understand how their body works, and the hunger, and how hunger works, how protein works with hunger, how simply just walking after eating, or slowing down while you're eating, like you're saying, because it's interesting because most mammals don't end up fat, right? This is like a uniquely human issue where we have hypercaloric foods, hypercaloric or hyper consumption based food science, with products looking for you to consume more. That's their bottom line, is they want to make money and consume more. And so now, even without the GLP-1, we're oftentimes in the first world in a food environment that we can't even trust anyway. It's
Yeah.
almost already biohacked our ability to know if we're full, because I can crush a whole bag of Cheez-Its easy. That's like I can go through Cheez-Its like nobody's business. You give me the family size, that's Scott's size. So, and there's a reason for that, and that's the food science that went into it. And
Correct.
so, to be fair to the client I'm thinking of, we're in a food environment that's already hijacked our ability to know if we're full,
Yes.
right? I don't know if you comment on that.
Yeah, no, we absolutely have. And that's, one of the things I think that we've always been congruent on, Scott, is if man's had a touch in the food process somewhere along the way, it's probably going to have toxins, it's probably going to have artificial stimulants that are designed to send the message to the brain. Well, this tastes so good, let's keep eating it, let's keep eating it. And now every time I see that commercial, I want more of it. So it's almost like our entire food chain has been sabotaged unless we actually go back to how it was supposed to be, which is whole foods, whole, farm fresh kind of thing.
Yeah, it's much harder to get overweight on whole foods diet. We're gonna have more fiber, we're gonna have more nutrients, it's gonna digest slower, and you're gonna feel fuller quicker. That's the way God intended it, right? I guess. And so,
Yes.
um, keep that in mind, listener. I'm not saying don't eat the Cheez-Its, because I will still have Cheez-Its every once in a while because I love them. So does my wife. But understanding the context of what you're eating can truly affect how you feel afterwards. And maybe we can talk about that in a little bit. But back to the GLP-1.
Yes.
So let's talk. You said GLP-1, 2, and then we mentioned 3, but then we said we kind of backed off of that. So if I understand correctly, GLP-1, so primarily a hunger response and a gastric emptying features, right?
And insulin stabilization.
Excuse me. And
Yes.
insulin savings. Do we have those 3 things? GLP-2, you said, was it sounds like totally unrelated to weight loss. It sounds like intestinal healing, like somebody had Crohn's disease or something like that.
That's exactly what it was designed for.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And as a positive, if you want to think about it that way, side effect, it does create a little bit of weight loss. Again, partially because of it does have it slows down movement through the gut. So now you feel more full more quickly. So it really isn't creating weight loss per se, it's just making the whole digestive process take longer.
Is that the same process that a GLP-1 does? Or are they two different gastric slowing, gastric empty?
It's the GLP-1 is more like, let's just hit the brakes.
Okay.
It literally sends the message to the gastric juices, to everything, to slow down. And that's why that one can potentially be dangerous in the long term, because we've significantly decreased our metabolic rate. So when we come off it, if our metabolic rate is in the toilet, our capacity of our stomach is also very, very much diminished. Now the body thinks it's in starvation mode, right? So it really doesn't matter what we put into it. Number one, it's not going to process it very effectively and efficiently. But then number two, it's going to want to store everything as fat, which is why I read a stat just the other day, Scott, and I thought it was fascinating. 80% of people, after going on a GLP-1, within 3 months gained all of the weight back, if not more than
Yeah.
what they did in the first place.
Yep.
And why? Was it the GLP that failed? No. What failed was their ability to understand the process and make changes, and think that if they just went back to those same habits, what did Einstein say? Definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Well, that's kind of post GLP, unless you do different actions.
Yeah, I agree, and we're going to definitely touch on that. And so, GLP-2 intestinal healing, but also slows. I don't know. I can only think of airplane motive flow with fuel, but literally the flow of food through you. So you're going to slow down on your eating. Now, GLP-3, what's that?
So the GLP-3, this one has a glucagon receptor in there as well. It has the mechanism of action of the GLP-1. It has the mechanism of action of the GLP-2, but then the glucagon receptor comes in there as well, which now actually speeds up your metabolic rate as opposed to slowing it down. So now we're decreasing our insulin sensitivity, and that is one of the reasons why people tend to lose more weight more quickly using a GLP-3.
Is that, is that, I guess it kind of sounds like we're running in two directions that could get dangerous, right? Somebody not eating as much, but now we're increasing their metabolic rate. Kind of sounds like that could get dangerous quickly if people stay on that for too long.
Well, and now our bowel movements have significantly slowed down.
Yeah, like we're
So
burning the candle at both ends, it sounds like, with this one.
100%, yeah. And so that is one of the most negative side effects, Scott, of any of the GLPs, but particularly the GLP-3, is the constipation. And so now we're seeing, as a side effect of that, people are getting hemorrhoids as part of the process because they're having to force, to be able to have bowel movement. The other thing is, when people are taking these drugs, they're often not time keeping well hydrated.
Right.
And if there isn't sufficient hydration, the stool's not going to soften and it's not going to be able to be eliminated. So we're actually seeing hospital visits with impaction because of the decreased quantity, the slowness, the dehydration. Okay. Now, the other thing that we're seeing is a significant loss of muscle mass.
Yeah, let's
So
talk about
you've
that.
you've heard the term
About that.
skinny fat, right? What is
Yeah.
skinny fat? Well, it's like, wow, this is awesome. My scale just dropped 30 pounds. But what happened? Now everything wobbles, because what is easier to do, your body wants to burn muscle over fat. It's much easier for it to do. And the body always loves to take the easy route. So oftentimes when we see that scale weight drop rapidly, that is when people are now, and you've heard the people and seen maybe some of those biggest loser challenges
Yes.
where people are losing like anywhere from 100 to 200 pounds. What's their next step? it's a plastic surgeon appointment, isn't it? Because they've got so much loose skin, they've got so little muscle tone, and the fat's no longer there. So there's a reason why this should be very closely and carefully monitored. And personally, I'm much more of a fan of using microdoses than using a standardized 0.8 mil to start with, and by the time you're done, you're up as high as 6 mils. That to me is just crazy.
So if what's this for the listeners then? If I was on a GLP-1 or I know I want to take it, what in your way, like you're saying this microdosing, what would you do? How would you manage this? And what would be like my start to finish of taking this drug and getting off of it and maximizing the benefit and then minimizing the negative side effects and then ultimately get off of it? Take me from step one to the end. You know, we can't control everything, right? And everyone's different and everyone reacts differently, but go along with me on how's this thing really supposed to go if you're taking a GLP-1?
So if you're doing it right, Scott, and since you asked me what I would do, I'm going
Yeah.
to answer it like that. Okay. So what I would do is talk to you first. Okay. I would want to say, all right, here's my previous habits. They haven't been great. They've got me into this position I don't want to be in. I need you to help me with my food. I need a different relationship with food. I need guidance to know what it is that I want to eat. Because if I think I'm going to go through this GLP-1 and continue to eat the Cheez-Its, the Taco Bells, the extra gulp Cokes, all of that, then the wrong way to do it. So first of all, I need to work on my psyche. So I'm then going to have that conversation with you. Then I'm going to say, okay, I
You
haven't
say
moved.
you we're talking a fitness coach and a nutrition coach in
Yes.
conjunction with this journey. Okay, just for the
That,
listener.
to me, that is 100% essential. If you want the best results in the shortest amount of time with the highest efficacy, safety, and no need to do it again and again and again. Okay, so now we've got our nutrition on point, we've got our exercise on point, we've got our mental game on point before we've even decided do we want a one, a two, or a three.
Sure.
Okay, so then we figure out, well, which one of those is going to make the most sense for my specific goals. So let's just say I know my blood sugar is all over the show because we've done some testing and we can see that. And I know I would like to lose about 10 to 20 pounds. Okay. And I want to do it slowly and I want to do it safely. So GLP-1 is going to be my choice on that one. Okay. Now I want to make sure that I start at a super conservative dose multiple times a week, building up and increasing that dose a little bit each time. Because what a little bit often does to the body is it constantly makes it produce insulin, produce glucagon, and process glucose more sustainably instead of having peaks and troughs of mega doses. And so now we may be able to go through a 3-month process, complete those goals, which were that 15 to 20 pound weight loss, stabilization of my blood sugar. I've made new habits with my eating, with my working out. I
Right.
have not got negative relationship with food. I've got a new friend and my coach and my trainer, and I'm like, done. Why would I need to go back and do it ever again?
So we don't have to like titrate down from it or anything like that. We can just be done and finish our last dose and be at a better place, or is there a
That is
reverse
go
process?
Yeah, that is going to depend on the individual, okay, and on that individual's actual progress and what their goals are. I'm never a big fan of going cold turkey, so yes, a titration down period is always the best way to do it. Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And so we talked about muscle. I definitely think that we should talk about the role that muscle has with weight loss because I think it's overlooked. And I know so many people who have no interest in lifting weights but want to lose weight. Why is this, or worse, they're running their weight off, they think, or they're doing really intense cardio on their Peloton or their tonal thing they bought in their house. I was just flying with an FO who was all about his tonal and Peloton trying to lose weight. And I was just sitting there waiting for him to tell me his story, waiting for him to tell me about his fancy equipment and how many calories he burned and how intense his workouts are. And I was just like, can I ask why you bought all that? Like, what was the reason for that? He's like, oh, well, I'm trying to lose some weight. I was like, can I share a perspective? And so I shared this perspective, listeners. This is definitely in my wheelhouse, and Doc will definitely add to this. My analogy for this is we got two vehicles. Your body is like a car that can shift between a Toyota Prius or a 1993 Suburban with a little bit of primer bumpers, right? Rolling around your town. Now, we know the Prius gets 50 miles to the gallon. We know that the Suburban, if we're lucky, gets 10. And it probably gets 10, maybe 10 on the freeway and 10
On a
around.
good day.
See no difference in fuel economy, whether you're going 80 or you're going 5 miles an hour. That thing just sucks down fuel. And so, now when we talk about metabolically what we want, there's what you want and then what your body wants. And those are often two different things. And that's really where this story has to start with muscle, because when we do what this other FO I was flying with, ton of running, ton of intense cardio, and using that as the primary weight loss mover, you can lose weight doing that, no doubt. And I used to be that person. I ran a marathon, I was running, 5, 12, 15 miles a week, and I lost weight. I got skinnier, and I thought, great, I've lost weight. Well, while you're doing that, your body doesn't care that you want to lose weight. Your body's just reacting to the stimulus you're giving it, which is intense cardio, which is good for your heart, which has so many benefits to it. I'm not knocking running, not knocking cycling or intense exercise. But what your body is doing is it's always trying to protect you. It's always trying to say, okay, Scott, you want to run 15 miles? Well, I need to make sure we keep the lights on when you're not running. I need to make sure that we're producing all the biological processes to keep you alive every day. So it's the equivalent of kind of budget cuts for your body. It's government saying, sorry, budget cuts, you're going to have to do more with less. So your body says, okay, that's what I'll do. First thing that goes, let's get rid of this muscle. We don't need all this muscle to run 20 miles. We need the minimum amount of muscle to run 20 miles, because the more muscle I can get rid of, the more energy is left over for me to keep you alive. So it's in my interest as Scott's body to dump that muscle. And you, as the user, Scott, the person, thinks he's losing weight. This is great. I'm losing weight. I'm getting smaller. My pants fit. Awesome. Here's the problem, because over months of doing that, we've turned our body, back into the car analogy, into more of a Toyota Prius, extremely efficient with energy. And so this is what happens with intense exercise, consistently week after week, month after month. I got knee tendonitis. My ankle hurt. Mm-hmm. Maybe I got sick and I had to take a week off because I caught the flu. All of this intense exercise that you've trained your body to cope with, I think that's the best word to explain with this, is gone. And so now your body is like, well, Scott's not running. He's not doing intense Peloton. He's not doing this intense exercise. Let's get ahead on this and start making fat immediately. Let's pack it in, because we know, because your body's a survival mechanism. It doesn't know that you live in the 21st century where food's everywhere. It's always operating from a space of scarcity, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, feel free to jump in, Doc, if you feel it. You along for the ride with me?
No, you're 100% on point. I was going to add, just take it back to some of the early days. Who was one of the most successful racers? Was the Vikings. Ever see a puny, scrawny Viking? Nope. They were all monstrous. They all had massive amounts of muscle, which enabled them to be able to be high-performance machines and do anything. And the little skinny ones that spent all the time running around were the ones that they were the ones that the Vikings came and conquered again and again and again. So you're 100% on point.
So yeah, now we've gotten to this kind of coffin corner, which is an aviation analogy, this coffin corner with your body, where you have to keep up this exercise to keep the fat off, because that's what you trained your body to do, you dummy. You got to run 15 miles a week, or else you're going to put on fat. And so now we get into this cycle where you have to keep going at this high level of intensity, which often risks your musculoskeletal health or your sanity, or else the fat comes back with a vengeance. If you take a break for a second, coffin corner for those listening who aren't pilots, where you fly too high to where you either stall because you're going too slow through the air, or you do this really terrifying thing called Mach tuck, where you're going too fast and the plane actually creates with lift there's drag, and the drag exceeds the lift coefficient, and the plane tucks forward and the wings rip off, and you come down in a fiery mess from going too fast. And so you're caught too slow, too fast, right in the center keeps you flying. Too much exercise, we get hurt. Too little exercise, the fat comes on and you're stuck there. And that's the life you live. And when you're in your 20s, early 30s, maybe that you can do that for a while. Maybe you can keep that up, but man, then you have a kid, then you got a job, that you get that promotion where you're no longer on the floor. You're no longer, if you're an airplane guy, you're no longer hustling from plane to plane. You're doing my job, which is pretty cushy. And all of a sudden, your body's just been conditioned for years. It's like, finally I can store fat. Finally Scott's slowed down. And that's where we find these people taking GLP-1s. And it's the perfect storm because they don't have a whole lot. And so the other side of this, right? The 1993 Suburban getting 10 miles to the gallon, freeway or the highway. From a survival standpoint, your body does not want that. Your body thinks that's a huge threat. Because remember, your body is operating from scarcity and survival. My real world story for this is when I was in the Army. Ranger school is one of the toughest schools you can do short of special forces in any military service. And you go down to Florida, you live in the swamp, you do the swamp phase, you do all these things, you got to do a gazillion pull-ups, you got to lift up these logs and do a lot of strenuous, really hard stuff combined with land navigation and soldier tasks, and no sleep, extremely fatiguing on your body. But it's a very tough school to make it through. A lot of people wash out. But it's funny because you ask anybody who goes to Ranger School, you just have to ask them, okay, so who were the first people that fell out? Almost every single time, it's the gigantic, muscly dude who joined the Army, who wants to be G.I. Joe, who thinks they're, Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's like, I will be the biggest, baddest MRFer out there. Those dudes are out in the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
Those are the guys who get heat stroke. Those are the guys who start hallucinating and fail an event because their body, calorically and metabolically, is just so inefficient. It cannot cope with the extremes of Ranger School. And that's where your body wants to avoid, because it doesn't know you're not going to Ranger School. It expects everyone's going to have to do that for survival. The next ice age, whatever. Evolution got this body for us. And so the good news is, for most of us, we aren't going to Ranger School. In fact, you probably won't qualify, so you won't have to do it. You're not going to get forced to go to Ranger School or do any of those things. So, but we live in an opposite environment. Sedentary life, lack of sunlight, lack of great food, changing circadian rhythms if you're a pilot, changing routines. A ton of cushy first world obstacles that all could be absorbed if we turned our body into more of that 93 Suburban. Because if we get more metabolically efficient and inefficient with the calories because we have more muscle, you're going to be able to have pizza and beer a whole lot more and not put on that fat. I'm not saying it all the time, but as we get older especially, you're not going to be punished from the niceties that you've earned in your life. And that's really why muscle is important metabolically. It's not because you want to be a bodybuilder. It's because you want to play with your kids at 70 years old, your grandkids. You want to be able to go to a wedding and eat what you want and blow out and not put on 10 pounds in one night. You want to be able to occasionally eat the foods that are really enjoyable that you eat right now, those box of Cheez-Its that I have upstairs, and not be punished from it because your body burns it up and uses it for this muscle real estate you have, because we've hopefully built a body that gets 10 miles to the gallon on the freeway and highway. So no matter what you feed it, it's going to, within reason, it's going to maintain itself.
And I think what you just circled all the way back around to, Scott, is balance. The body doesn't like the extremes. Okay, so it's super important when you're going through any training process, any weight loss process, to have both ends of the scale, neither at an extreme. Your body needs cardiovascular support for healthy heart, for healthy immune system, but you better lift something at some point because you need that for your bone density. Okay, the very last thing you want when you're 60 is to take a fall and break a hip because you never picked up a weight in your entire life. Okay. Also, you're, like you said, Scott, from a metabolism perspective, muscle burns fat far faster than super lean, because you have your fast twitch muscles, which are all your sprinters, right? You don't see massive sprinters, but what you do see is extremely well-toned sprinters that have the balance between muscle mass, between the slow twitch fibers and the fast twitch fibers. So they kind of have like the perfect bodies because they realize the importance of strength training, weightlifting, and the fast twitch where I better be running away from whatever is kind of going to chase me. So those are obviously extremes. However, the point is the body needs both. And if you can maintain both, that is super beneficial.
Yep, and that's what we try to do here at Jet Set Trainer. It's kind of make you
100%.
live a more optimal life, whether it be, doing the hobbies you'd enjoy. Like, we're never going to cancel running on you, but also incorporate some weights. And it doesn't have to, and it's really surprising too. Like, same client I'm thinking of, this GLP-1 client who's getting off of it. He does very simple workouts with his body weight at home for now. And he already mentioned, he's like, Scott, I'm already noticing in my legs, I'm getting some muscle tone. So you'd be surprised for someone who's never lifted before, the capacity of your body to change quickly. And especially these newbie gains, like you will build muscle very quickly if you've never done it before. With not a whole lot of weight, you don't have to do anything extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Just taking that first step, doing a 30-minute workout 3 times a week, you can metabolic. I mean, I can't think of time spent to return on investment for most people over 30. Spending an hour and a half a week. Think how many hours are in a week. It's like 168 or something like that. Hour and a half a week can change the way, not only the way your body looks, but how you feel. That's better than the GLP-1 drug. And it can be pretty free. Almost.
I mean, you use your body weight, it doesn't cost you a dime.
Yeah. Almost free. Planet Fitness is $25. $25 to change the way you look and feel by just lifting some weight. Now, with that being said, the nutrition is a massive component of this. But even if you ignored the nutrition and just exercised, you'd be surprised how much better you might feel by just lifting some weights. Light weights, machines. Pick the lowest weight that you feel comfortable with. It will change the way you feel and look.
Yeah. And when you're building up to that, if you are at a point where your body is too large and it hasn't moved in a long period of time, don't try and do all the things you're seeing in magazines and seeing on television and keeping up with someone that's had those habits for years and years and years. Go and buy yourself some little rubber resistance bands. And you can do these exercises sitting on your couch. It is absolutely fantastic. To Scott's point, how quickly the body is going to adapt, change, and make massive amounts of progress without you really having to do anything extreme. And then what happens? Now you feel better, you look better, you have more energy. So your motivation is higher, and that just continues to snowball. So we can't stress the importance of just, if that's not something that you've ever done, just start. Start simple, and then once it becomes a habit, you can build and build and build. But that's also the beauty of working with someone like Scott and Jet Set Trainer and all his coaches, because they take the guesswork out of it, guys. You know, they use the empirical data. They use what you're telling them are your goals, and they meet you where you are.
Absolutely. And just to come full circle with what we do here, myself, I'm a pilot. I have another coach who's an airline pilot as well. I have another coach who performed at a high level professionally as an opera singer on tour and bodybuilt at the same time. It takes a whole
Nice.
lot of discipline. So, we have, and that's just the coaches we have now. Who knows now when you're listening to this if we got more coaches, but in our talent network, I'm trying to build this company to be the number one travel, fitness, and health company on the planet. And I'm looking for talent that can help me get there one day. So if that's you, you can always reach out. If you have a travel background and you feel like you can help us, please let me know. But if you're someone listening to this who is in the travel industry, whether you're a pilot, a flight attendant, a crew member, maybe a dispatcher, maybe you just like to travel, you're a perennial cruise ship person, maybe you're a business traveler who flies, more than once a month. We are your solution. We are the biggest thing that makes us different from all the other fitness programs that you see online that you're getting ads for. Is that Doc Shepard's here to help us with his clinical staff. He is just one member of that staff, by the way. His wife is also a member. We also have a GI specialist as well. And Doc, do you want to just kind of give the once over of how us working together really separates us from other fitness coaches?
Yeah, I mean, it really, you've probably heard me say this already. We don't guess, we test. And that's so important, guys. You are going to try the next latest and greatest thing again and again and again, unless you actually have a true roadmap. And so what Scott's program does is it allows you to have a roadmap. You know where you're going to start. You know the process that goes through. So we take you through all of the expectations. We're going to start with metabolics because metabolics is all energy. Okay, so if your metabolic system can't give you the amount of energy that you need to go through your day, it doesn't matter what else you're trying to actually do. And if you've ever had those big meals and you can't get up off the couch after, you know that feeling. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Or 3 o'clock in the afternoon comes around, you know you've got 2 more meetings to struggle through, or you have to run across the airport to get on another plane. If you don't have the energy, you just flat out don't have the energy. So we love to start with the metabolic system. We use the data to drive it. Then that's going to uncover what is potentially needed next. That could be GI. If we're not being able to absorb our food, 60% of our hormone production comes from our gut. 65% of our immune system comes from our gut. If we know that we have issues with digestion, elimination, and or we're constantly sick all the time and we can't figure out why, we're going to want to take a look at the gut. And then, of course, what is everybody run on? Hormones. Okay? If your mood's crazy, if your energy level is crazy, if you can't put on muscle mass, if you can't lose weight, if you've been put on birth control for many, many, many years, now you're struggling even being able to conceive. All of these things, we need to know what's going on with those hormones. So the beauty of us being able to work with the Jet Set Trainer is you have comprehensive care. You have all of the diet, all the lifestyle, all of the fitness. And Scott is fantastic and his team for keeping up with everything that's current. So you're not going to get data that was driven back in the 80s, okay? You're going to get cutting edge. We pride ourselves with doing the same thing. Now that doesn't mean that we're flight air and change everything every 2 minutes, because at the end of the day, the body has stable markers. Those don't really change. But we utilize the best technology, the best people to be able to give you from start to finish. And our major goal is longevity and performance in your lifestyle.
Absolutely. And just to fill in any gaps in your knowledge, well, what the hell happens when you work with Jet Set Trainer? Let me answer that. So when you work with us, what the very first thing we do is a pre-flight phase. We're going to make sure we test and find out our baseline. So this includes a blood test. This includes biometric health survey. This includes a GI survey. This includes a continuous glucose monitor. We take that data and we aggregate it all, and we sit down on a call with Doc and we pull it all together and get the best metabolic profile that we can see with the data and the results. With that, we come up with targeted, tactical, time-limited supplementation based on your readings, what would help you. And then we take that data as well and impact what we do in the gym and with your food. And so why that's so powerful is we just signed a new client the other day from FedEx who worked with a coach, and unfortunately he gained weight with that coach, and it was really unfortunate. And I know that coach was teaching him macros, was teaching him how to lift. He got stronger, but unfortunately put on more fat and weight, and he could not figure out the nutrition. And one of the biggest things that was a big red marker on our biometric health survey when I spoke to him was, what do you think it was, Doc? What do you think was just off the charts high on that biometric health survey?
Blood sugar.
Yeah, blood sugar, 100%. He's a FedEx pilot, flying through the middle of the night, across time zones to Asia and back. The dude's blood sugar was all over the place according to his symptoms. And unfortunately for the previous coach, they didn't have that data. They didn't know. It wasn't that they didn't try, they didn't care. Of course they wanted to help. But that's the difference here at Jet Set Trainer, is that anyone can teach macros, anyone can teach you how to lift. You can go to ChatGPT and ask, what should I eat? They can make you in a caloric deficit. They can give you great generic advice. And maybe that works for you, and I hope it does, because then cool, you can scratch that off and move on. But the vast majority of individuals, frankly, that's not enough for a long-term solution. What we do differently is we take all of this bio data and apply it to these fundamentals so that your macros are not just what your coach thinks you should do, it's what a clinical staff and your markers are kind of driving us to change.
100%.
The best part is we always retest to check our work, to check the efficacy of any program we do. Yes. And so I can't overemphasize why that makes us different. It's because we actually have objective data driving what we do with your program, and that objective data is yours, the listener. It's impossible for us to be cookie cutter because we let the data drive what your solution is. And hopefully by the end of it, we pull data that shows everything's been improved. You've increased your relationship with food. You understand how to eat on the road and at home, and you understand that you can maybe have ice cream every once in a while and not be punished by it now. You know what you're doing in the gym. You have simple, easy to do exercises. I'm not a bodybuilding coach, so I'm not going to give you that. If that's what you want, go find someone else or a power lifter. But you know how to move in the gym to build muscle and feel great on a routine that fits your schedule. You know how to eat the foods in your life at an effective, efficient way. You have habits that you can implement, whether you can't go to the gym, which is always a problem in my life flying. Sometimes you just can't go to the gym. We have solutions there. And then most importantly, you have probably learned more about your body and how it works than really ever in your life. Because you are on the call looking at the data with Doc. You're on the calls with me looking at what you ate and what the effects was. The beautiful part about our program is it's a lifetime fitness formula because you, the listener, yes, client, you are a part of it every step of the way. There's no gatekeeping. We don't go in a back room and say, what should we do with this person? And come up with a secret plan and come back and tell you what to do as the client. You're in the room with us. Mm-hmm. You get to problem solve with us. And that's the former Army officer in me that I love about this business is I freaking love problems and I love solving them. And if you're a listener that feels that way, like I want to work with you because I hate working with clients that don't have any interest in problem solving. They just want to be told what to do the rest of their life. That's not this program. I'm teaching you how to fish with your fitness. I'm teaching you how to fly. I want you to be able to take a license, which is your health, that no one can take away from you because you're going to get engaged with your health with us in a way that your doctor is going to be asking you questions about your health, not the other way around. That's my goal at the end of this training, and I know that's what's Doc's goal, right? You want to be able to have our clients go to their annual physical, and they you ask, hey, what was my A1C? And they're like, oh, it's this. Like, did you look at my HDLs? Are those correlating? Like, well, what do you mean? And so I would love, that's my goal, is to truly get you to be an expert in your body. And I know there's a lot of people out there just like myself because that's what I want. I want to be an expert in my body. right? And I'm sure that's what you want, Doc. That's what got you into this, right?
That's 100%. To be able to teach people, to empower them to take control of their own body, their own life, their health. And it's not a destination, it's a journey. And it doesn't matter if you're 18 years old or if you're 98 years old, okay? Your body was not designed to fall apart just because you hit that magic age of 65, okay? It was designed to live, to heal, to repair, to function at an optimal level, provided we don't make crappy decisions and throw the wrong nutrition at it and get lazy and sit on the couch. We do actually have to play, okay? And that's the whole beauty with Scott and his team, and how we come into the puzzle with that. We teach you how to play effectively, efficiently, and for longevity.
Exactly. And so, the full circle, let's go back to the GLP-1 and put this to bed. Are GLP-1s bad? How do we sum up what we said?
Time and a place. GLP-1s are absolutely a tool to be utilized for a short-term result, monitored and structured in an appropriate manner. Absolutely fantastic. Is it something that everyone should pick up and just run with it because they can go to a peptide site and buy a whole bunch of stuff? I would absolutely not recommend that.
Okay. So, all you listeners out there who know someone on a GLP-1 or taking one yourself, I hope you learned something today. Share this with them. There's a lot of information on the internet, and we're honored to have you here if you've made it this far. But I am not an anti-GLP-1 user. I think that they're a great tool as well. I have some clients who use them. But to reiterate what Doc said, there are a lot of risks that if they aren't monitored, if they aren't mitigated, just like any threat brief before you go fly, they will rear its ugly head and you will get caught on the hamster wheel going from GLP-1 to GLP-1 for the rest of your life. We are here to do the heavy lifting with you so you don't have to figure this out yourself.
Yes.
If you have anxiety about food, anxiety about the GLP-1, anxiety about your blood work or a medical coming due if you're a pilot, you just need to go to jetsettrainer.com, fill out a quick survey, book a call, and every single person who books a call with us gets access to our biometric health survey that Doc and his profession have created for us, so that on the call you can get answers to your metabolic health, to even know if you have an issue. Whether or not you work with me, my goal is to just give you that information because I firmly believe when people have the right information, they make better choices.
100%. And that is so powerful, guys. So please, if you are listening and you've just been uncertain or you've tried things before, I promise you, you will have never tried anything like what Scott and his team offer. And he's got such a heart. He gives away more than anything else. So
I do.
he does.
Sometimes you cannot pay for it, and that's okay because I truly will do anything to help someone who's willing to learn, listen, and really get vulnerable with us because that's what this whole health and fitness journey can be. And so
100%.
that'll do it for this episode. If you want to speak to us, I highly recommend going to the website and booking a call. It's July 28th here, this year, 2026. We are going to both be in person along with my other coach, Ryan, at RTAG. So if you're a pilot, we have an RTAG conference coming up in October. That's the Rotor Transition Airlines group. If you're trying to get hired at an airline or you're a recruiter, or it's the biggest airline conference every year, and it's dear to my heart because it stands for Rotor Transition Airline Group. I used to be a rotor pilot, Blackhawk pilot. So it's my way to give back to the veterans who are making that transition from military flight service to an aviation job. And this is a major obstacle, right? Because I always joked when I was in the military, I was a professional athlete because I got paid to pass a fitness test every year. That goes away if you're a veteran out there. They don't care if you pass any. They don't care if you don't do a push-up. But it's now your responsibility. I'm not saying you got to do push-ups to be healthy, but what I'm saying is that transition from being forced to work out to being optional is a massive leap for a lot of us who go living on the road out of a suitcase. It can be a perfect storm with your health and with your weight. You may already be feeling it right now. That may be why you're on the podcast, why you've consumed my content. You need to reach out to us. Start at jetsettrainer.com. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, X, but jetsettrainer.com is just the easiest way to get started and speak to me face to face. So appreciate your time today. 59 minutes. Doc, any closing statements before we go?
Just tune in again, guys. If you didn't find something that you were really jiving on today, we're going to have so much content that is just designed to continue to inform you. We're going to be constantly focusing on the latest and greatest in fitness and in healthcare to really just empower you. Whether or not you choose to work with us, we really don't care. What we care about is that you take those steps to live your life better, help your families live their lives better. That's what we're all about from our heart.
Welcome to the health and fitness wormhole. That's all I have to say, because it is one. But it's fun, though. It's fun. It's great. So thank you, guys. I hope you're having a great summer. We're shooting to have an episode once a month, so we'll see you next month.